Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And this week we'll be discussing the episode Why We Fight. This episode originally aired February 11th, 2004, attracting approximately 3.64 million viewers. So, let us start off with the number one film in America this week, Dave. Any guesses?
Film-wise around that time of the year.
Valentine's Day 2004. What would it be? What would it be?
God, there's only one that comes to mind, but I doubt it would even be relatively close. Like, the title of it is escaping me, but the essential story is the character played by Queen Latifah is given a medical record. She only has a couple days to live, and she goes out and does a whole bunch of rich people things.
No, that is definitely not this movie. I don't know what movie you're referencing, but it is a little film called 50 First Dates.
Ah, yes. Surprisingly, that never came to mind. I vaguely remember watching it when I was a kid.
Which, if I remember the film correctly, it is one of the few Adam Sandler movies that I can actually stomach.
Not surprised, but also mildly amazing.
There's like this one and maybe like one or two others. Anyway, let us move on to the number one song in America this week, Dave.
On the one hand, it's the safe bet to stick with Hey Ya, but I wouldn't be surprised if something topped it by now at the very least.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
But nothing is immediately coming to mind. Thank you for the game show time limit song, but as it is, yeah, I can't think of anything else that it could be.
You're so close, but yet so far, Dave. It is not Hey Ya. It has been replaced, but it is replaced by another Outkast song. So we swapped out Hey Ya for The Way You Move by Outkast featuring Sleepy Brown.
Yeah, radios.
Who I'm not familiar with, but you know. That surprises no one who's been paying attention to this show. Anyway, moving on to video games. Now, oh boy. I know I feel like every week I say this, but this week there's some bangers. Okay, so
I suppose it's left to question how much of bangers are they actually?
I guess it depends on the person, but for me, these were games that I was like, ooh. Anyway, on February 11th, if you're a PC gamer, you can pick up a game called Feeding Frenzy.
Okay.
It's
I
like...
think I vaguely remember that. It was like those little click games off of... What site? What was it? They're like super popular for Plants vs. Zombies now.
PopCap, yeah. It's a PopCap
That
game.
one.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to February 14th, when if you were a Game Boy Advance player, you had a great couple of options here. So I don't know if you remember this, Dave, but Nintendo released what they called like the classic NES series on the Game Boy Advance.
Okay. Because on the one hand, I know that they did a similar sort of thing when I believe either Wii or Wii U was let out, but it's also a case of, yeah, they actually kind of started it on the Game Boy Advance, didn't they?
Yeah, they were like $20 or something, and on this day you got Donkey Kong, Excite Bike, Ice Climber, The Legend of Zelda, and Super Mario Bros. Well released.
Oh, there you go.
And there's some great games in there, especially Excite Bike. And we have a few others here. So on February 17th, if you're a PS2 player, you can pick up a game called Jet Li Rise to Honor.
Yeah, that makes sense. I vaguely remember that he was a popular actor at the time or had a movie or two out. So, game, I suppose, makes sense.
And apparently the game isn't like... Because most of those kind of games are pretty terrible. This one seems to be like kind of average. Not good, but not terrible. And also on February 17th, if you were a PC or PS2 gamer, you could pick up Pro Evolution Soccer 3.
Supposed neat? Like, was it typical sports or did they go crazy with it?
No. So the Pro Evolution Soccer games were like EA has had like the FIFA whole thing for like a long ass time, but they weren't very good at the time. So Konami kind of was like, we'll make our own like soccer game, but actually make it competent. Anyway, let us move into the episode. Alrighty. So, we start off in 1943, and a submarine is moving through the Atlantic Ocean as its crew begins to panic. An officer named Lawson issues orders to the crew as their captain is suddenly grabbed and killed by an unseen creature. In the present, Angel's team discusses the fact that Eve has vanished. Wesley is concerned about her threats of revenge, but Gunn thinks that the senior partners will take care of her for them. Angel wants to make sure that Lindsay is being punished as well, but Gunn notes that the White Room is still empty and they no longer have a link to the senior partners. Gunn knows of a procedure to allow them to establish a new link, but has trouble recalling the information, which he puts down to tiredness. Angel takes this as a cue to let them all go home, surprising the team who are used to being let go before midnight on a Friday. However, they still have work to do, so they agree to meet up in a few hours for another discussion. They split up as Lawson arrives in the building. Later, Fred encounters him in the science lab and is disturbed when he knows her name. She backs away, but he warns her that if she runs, he will have to stop her. He tells her that he's an old friend of Angel's from back when he was in his patriotic phase. We go back to 1943. Angel is sitting alone in a New York City apartment when a group of military officers armed with stakes burst inside. They represent a new agency, the Demon Research Initiative, and their goal is to recruit Angel to join the war effort. They need his assistance to rescue a German prototype submarine that has been commandeered by the American military. The crew ran into trouble on their way home and is now trapped in enemy territory. No human soldier can reach the sub because of the extreme cold and pressure at the bottom of the ocean, conditions that pose no threat to a vampire. Angel is initially hesitant to participate, but soon becomes clear that he has no real choice. In the sub, Lawson and his surviving shipmates are barricaded into a small section of the submarine, temporarily safe but unable to control the submarine. As they evaluate their options, they are alarmed to hear a clanging sound in the tubes until Lawson recognizes it is a Morse code, an SOS signal. They open the tube and discover Angel inside. In the present, Lawson captures Wesley as he attempts to help Fred. In the submarine, Angel asks for the captain and is informed that he is dead, and that Lawson is now in charge. Angel issues an order and provides a verification code to assure the crew that he is on their side. He heads for the hatch to confront the creature and comes face to face with a dark-haired Spike, clad in a black leather Nazi jacket. Angel asks Spike if he's a Nazi, and he answers no, he ate one. Spike assumes that Angel was grabbed by the SS the same way he was, at a false free virgin blood party. Really, Spike? That worked on you? Wow, okay.
It is Spike at that age and time, so it's not too surprising.
Spike introduces Angel to the two other recently freed prisoners, the vampire Nostriev and the Prince of Lies. When Spike learns that several humans are still alive, he wants to kill them. Angel forbids killing the humans because they need the crew to get back to the surface. Spike tries to prove that he can steer them out, but he sets off an alarm. When Nostriev insists upon killing all but one of the crew, Angel kills him. Angel reiterates his demand that no humans are killed, and Spike gives him a two-fingered salute and a Heil Hitler. In the present, Lawson confronts Angel in his office. Angel recognizes him and learns that Lawson has been keeping tabs on him for the past 60 years. In the sub, Angel introduces the crew to Spike and the Prince of Lies, telling them to put the vamps to work. As Angel and Lawson move the dead crew members out of the way, Lawson says that he is not sure how to feel about Spike being there since he killed the captain. Angel reminds him that they have to follow orders and bring the sub in. Lawson replies there's a difference between orders and purpose, and he can handle dying as long as it's for a greater purpose. Angel tells him that the job they do will help win the war, so they need to work together. In the present, Lawson asks Angel if he only did what he did on the sub for himself. He wants to understand why we do what we do. Angel attacks Lawson and starts to stake him with a coffee-leg table. But Lawson asks if he really wants to do that. Angel reminds him that the last time they saw each other, Angel promised he would kill Lawson the next time they met. Lawson says that he would never come to Angel without having something up his sleeve. He takes Angel to a conference room where Angel sees that Wesley, Fred, and Gunn are all tied up and standing on office chairs. Lawson explains that the gang have wire around their necks, so if they get knocked off their chairs, they'll be decapitated. Back on the sub, the crew takes command of the submarine, while Spike complains to Angel that he wants to steer the sub and be addressed as captain. Angel puts him to work and tries to assure Lawson that he can control Spike. The two hear screaming from the next room and rush to discover that the Prince of Lies is beating up the captured Nazi. He and Lawson try to get the Prince of Lies away from the Nazi, but Angel has to stake him to stop him. Angel has to explain to Lawson that the Prince of Lies was a vampire. Spike points out that the Prince of Lies was holding a report in German and demands that the Nazi tell them what it contains. Lawson translates an impromptu interrogation where Spike menaces the Nazi officer, who reveals that the Nazis have been doing experiments on vampires, trying to learn how to control them. The Nazis eventually plan to use controlled vampires in their army. Spike is furious and assumes that the Americans have similar plans. Accordingly, Spike reiterates his desire to kill the crew, but Angel and Lawson stop him. Lawson insists that the Americans would never experiment on vampires or try to control them, saying you don't win a war by doing whatever it takes, you win by doing what's right. Oh, you sweet summer child. Yeah, the Americans would never do something like that. Angel tells Spike to burn the report, which he does while singing God Save the King, much to the dismay of the Nazi officer. By this time, Spike has figured out that Angel is playing both sides, and he expresses surprise and respect for the move. They hear an explosion, and a distracted Spike accidentally sets his clothes on fire instead of burning up the whole report. Enemy destroyers are spotted, and the crew tries the submarine, but after more explosions, the sub is rendered motionless. The sub starts to take on water, and Angel helps fix the pipes to stop the flow. As Spike notes that the Nazis have disappeared, Lawson looks for his screwdriver. He turns around, and the Nazi stabs him in the stomach with the missing screwdriver. Angel tries to get the dying Lawson to tell him how to get the sub home. Lawson says that he's the only one capable of doing what needs to be done. Angel vamps out and bites Lawson, then makes Lawson drink from him. Angel heads back to the main room and tells the crew to get ready to surface. The newly sired Lawson repairs the sub and thanks Angel. However, now he wants to eat the rest of the crew. Since he and Angel do not need them anymore, Angel takes Lawson to the main room, warning the crew to keep their distance from him and forces him to leave the sub to swim 20 miles to dry land. He warns Lawson that the sun will come up in 8 hours and tell him that if he ever sees him again, he will kill him. As Lawson leaves the sub, Spike laughs at Angel's actions, telling him that he is still a dick, and is irritated when Angel also forces him to leave. In the present, Angel tells Lawson that he never wanted to sire Lawson, but Lawson notes that it seems fair to sacrifice his life to help the Americans. Angel tells him that killing the gang will not change the past. Lawson says that it will hurt Angel, which might be enough for him. It never is, Angel replies. They fight, and Lawson accuses Angel of making him nothing because Angel gave him a little bit of his soul. Lawson tries to stake Angel, who turns the stake around, as so does pointing at him. Go on, Chief, give me a mission, Lawson says. Angel stakes him. The next day, Spike goes into Angel's office, explaining that Fred filled him in on the events of the previous night. He thinks that Lawson was there for revenge, but Angel thinks he came for a different reason. But Angel says that he came there for a reason. Alrighty, so that was this episode.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this one, Dave?
It was fairly good. Kind of works with the same idea of bouncing back and forth between Angel's past life and this one, and especially going a little bit modern with it, with looking into war issues and other sorts of things around the time. It was definitely interesting at the very least. Though, especially from what you told me from the last week, it was a case of the thought of it dropping out into a Nazi punch fight would supposedly come up, but nothing that extreme.
Yeah, I kind of like this because there's definitely, I think this episode makes more sense when you've seen the rest of the series, but, they're definitely setting up some major themes for the back half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some stuff going on there. So this is the first time we've noticed that Gunn maybe isn't. Maybe something's going on with that upgrade he got.
Maybe something. Whether it's a bad thing or something else, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. I do love how Angel has the line, "I'm not getting trapped at the bottom of the sea," which obviously that would have. When he says that,
At the time it didn't happen, but oh man, it happened later on.
yes, because he says that in the 40s, and it's quite a good little like, oh, that will actually happen to you. Yes. So, if there's nothing else, let's go on to some international titles. Alrighty. So there's a bunch that are like Why We Fight or something like that. I'm just going to skip over those ones. In Finnish, it translates as War Memory. In French, The Submarine. In German, Underwater. In Hungarian, A Face from the Past. And finally, in Brazilian Portuguese, The Reason for the Fight.
Yeah, all kind of works.
Yes. Yeah, I think they're all quite good. Now, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up about this episode, Dave?
Immediately, I remember from the episode.
Yes,
No, it worked.
it's a good episode, but it's very much a standalone kind of. It's not really advancing the story a whole lot here.
Mm-hmm.
So, next week, I'm so happy, Dave.
Is it because it's gonna be your supposed favorite time?
It's gonna be my favorite time. It's gonna be smile time, bitches. Alrighty.
It's gonna supposedly be marvelous. From what I can remember, Angel was definitely excited about it.
Okay, I'm going to read the synopsis for this because I'm so happy we finally get to this episode. Okay, so next week we are in for a great puppet caper. When a popular children's show starts to steal the life forces of children by hypnotizing them, Angel goes directly to the studio to uncover the evil doings. Upon entering the building, Angel triggers a spell that transforms him into a puppet. In a race against time, Puppet Angel and company must find a way to reverse the spell, save the lives of hundreds of children, and return Angel to his normal vampire state. Meanwhile, Nina, the werewolf Angel befriended, returns to declare her romantic intentions, but Puppet Angel is a little embarrassed about, being a puppet.
Yeah, a teeny bit. It probably would happen.
It's smile time. I'm so happy. It's smile time, Dave. It's smile time.
Indeed, indeed.
I will warn you, though, we do get smile time, and then we get another episode that we'll talk about next week, but it won't be quite as happy.
No, that's kind of understandable, though. I suppose out of the couple particular funnier episodes that we've kind of got, this definitely takes it in an interesting direction.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait until next week. So until next week, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.